Hey guys, Justin here. Today I'm looking at what the website Backpacking Light has dubbed the best camp stove on the market, and that's the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe. This is the follow-up to the super famous and popular Pocket Rocket 2. I've used the Pocket Rocket 2 a lot and I've really liked it, so I was really excited to get my hands on the deluxe version. But today I'm gonna be focusing on just my experiences in the last 8 months, this past winter and spring, of using this stove and how it's performed for me. First up, let's talk about the specs. So this stove weighs 82 grams, so it's not a super light stove, and it costs $70. So it's also a really expensive stove, but you do get what you pay for with it. And we're gonna be talking about features in a little bit here. It's also a bigger stove and comes with this really big burner here, but that is super helpful for how this stove performs. It also comes with this little bag, but often I'll just fold it up, it folds up really nicely, and then stick it into my pot. It is a canister stove, so what that means, you need to use the correct fuel source with it, and that is usually some sort of canister fuel, isobutane. I use the MSR ones just because I find it works really well. Now that we've gotten specs of the way, let's talk about features, function, the performance, quality, and who this stove is for and what the key takeaways are. First up, I'm gonna screw it onto the canister here because we're actually gonna light this up and show it off a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about how it boils water. One of the main features with this stove, and something that is really important if you don't like to have to fiddle around with lighters and finding little things stuck in your pack, is that it has a piezo igniter. So what that means is there's this little button here, you press that and it will light the stove for you instead of having to use a lighter. And some people have talked about how the igniter has failed them or it hasn't worked consistently. I think that was earlier models of the stove. I think they figured it out since then. Like I said, I've had the stove for 8 months now, and I've never had the piezo igniter fail on me once. It's worked every single time, which is probably dozens and dozens of times. A couple other features with this stove have to do with the burner. So it has a really big wide burner that you can see here. And what that helps is if you have a big pot, then it's gonna really cover the pot and provide a lot of surface area for cooking whatever's in there. And it also has this lip on here, and what this lip helps with is when it's windy. That lip's gonna help block the wind, and it's gonna result in you having better boil times for your water, or a little bit of an easier time cooking whatever's in your pot. The pot has 3 arms here. They fold down, which is really nice, and they're nice and wide and have these serrated teeth on the side there. And with that, you get a really stable platform for boiling water. I have a really big 1.8 liter pot here, and you can see it fits really nicely onto the stove. Another feature, and it's a characteristic of more expensive stoves, is that it has a regulator. And what the regulator does, it controls the pressure and how much fuel is coming out of the stove. And this is super useful under cold conditions because usually the pressure in the canister is a bit lower and you may end up with less performance if you don't have a stove with a regulator. Speaking of performance, the stove boils water very quickly. When I put it on full blast, it seems like it takes no time at all. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but you can check out MSR's website, and REI, where you can buy the stove there, also posts what the boil times are, and I'll post a link in the description to that and you can check it out. I can say that it does boil quite a bit faster, maybe 50% faster than my BRS 3000 stove, that little 1 ounce titanium stove that you can get on Amazon. And it also performs really well in cold weather. I've used it a whole bunch this winter and the stove worked really well. Even when I forgot to bring the canister into my sleeping bag with me, I was still able to get a boil out of the stove. As for quality, this is a top of the line stove. All the parts are really well put together and really solid. The igniter is one of the things that people have said they've had problems with from a quality standpoint, but I haven't had any problems. It's worked completely fine for me. So if you do have a problem with it, don't just write it off as a faulty igniter. It's worked really well for me, and the guys at Backpacking Light also had a lot of really good experiences with the igniter. With MSR, you also get that lifetime warranty, which is really awesome. Love when companies stand behind their products. So who's this stove for? It's for anyone who just wants top of the line specs and features and doesn't really care what the price is. This is an expensive stove at $70. So if you want the Ferrari or Lamborghini of stoves, then this is the one you want to get. Also, if you use your stove in less than ideal conditions, at high elevations, cold temperatures, really windy conditions, then this stove is going to perform a lot better than a lot of other stoves out there, including its sibling, the Pocket Rocket 2. As for me, I've loved this stove. This is my go-to stove. It's part of my main gear list, which I'll post a link to that video right up there and you can check that out. But I'll be continuing to use this stove every time I go on backpacking trips because it just performs that well. And a lot of the time I am in the mountains like I am right here, and it's a little bit windy, a little bit cold, and we're at higher elevation. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.